My name is Caleb. I'm 31. At sunrise, Ivy stood on our porch with a realtor's flyer pinched between two fingers and told me I'd always been a drag on her momentum. The coffee in my hand went metallic. She didn't meet my eyes. She studied the glossy kitchen I had tiled after midnight, knees bruised level bubble, steadier than praise. I'm filing today, she added, like she was announcing a product launch. Then she smiled the way performers do when they've practiced the bow. I didn't come up with anything clever. I thought about seams how a home like tile work holds, because someone is patient with the parts nobody admires. What I wanted never impressed her family. Not apps, not spectacle, just steady cash flow. I liked vending machines that swallowed quarters and paid like clockwork. I liked contracts, the short renewals, and the long hum in the background. I went from 7 machines to 30 plus in 2 years, sold the route at a tidy gain, and rolled everything into a tired strip of storage units off the Interstate 36 dented doors, weeds for a welcome mat, a gravel lot that sang under your boots. To me, it sounded like security. Ivy didn't visit. She went to a spa with Sylvia. Call me when it looks like a business, not a salvage yard, she joked, filing a lime nail to a perfect edge. I resurfaced. Asphalt changed locks, added lights, and ran a teacher travel nurse special. Occupancy climbed, a wait list formed. At family dinners, though, the story was always Grant, her brother, with the big title badge, while I cleared plates and booked 6 a.m. meetings with contractors who liked early starts. Once Grant drilled a floating shelf into our living room. It ripped out an hour later under cookbooks. I patched the wall. Ivy praised him on social media. On our 3rd anniversary in a restaurant draped in plants, I told her I was closing on a second, smaller facility. Translation, she told the waiter, we'll be eating at home forever. The joke landed. Later, I found a credit card bill with my name and purchases I'd never seen, brand gifts for Sylvia, a girl's wellness weekend. I canceled the card. Sylvia called me controlling. I went to therapy alone and practiced the dangerous sentence, I need appreciation. The morning she filed, Sylvia idled at the curb. Papers hit my palm at noon. I hired Porter, a quiet lawyer with scuffed wingtips and a peppermint jar. His advice was simple, full sunlight. Every LLC, every K1, every lease clean and complete. No swagger, no spin, just proof. I boxed my life until the living room looked like a records room. The first hearing was set for Monday 9 a.m. Monday at 9 looked like a dentist's waiting room that had borrowed a flag and a seal. Beige carpet, quiet vents, straight-backed chairs that made everyone sit like they had a ruler pinned along the spine. I carried 2 banker's boxes because I don't trust old cardboard handles. Porter carried a folder so thin it felt like a dare. We already sent the drive, he said, tapping it. Paper is for theater. Bites are for judges. Ivy was already there, center aisle, a gray suit the color of cloud cover, and a mouth trying not to flatten into a line. Sylvia perched behind her pearl earrings like small exclamation points. Grant hovered in a borrowed suit whose sleeves pretended his wrists were farther away than they were. The opposing attorney, Mr. Dillon, all polish and cologne, had the kind of voice that says your first name like he discovered it. When the clerk called our case, the room straightened by a collective inch. Judge Whitaker took the bench with silver hair pulled back so tight it made the light look sharper, the calm of someone who enjoys numbers the way other people enjoy opera. Counsel, she said. Dillon went first. Your Honor, my client, Mrs. Ivy Corbett, supported Mr. Caleb Corbett through years of experimentation. She now seeks temporary support commensurate with the lifestyle to which she became accustomed while Mr. Corbett pursued various income-hust ventures. He smiled at the correction. We request immediate temporary alimony and exclusive use of the marital residence while the parties sort their finances. The word lifestyle hung in the air like perfume someone forgot to stop spraying. Porter didn't stand until silence asked him to. Your Honor, he said, books are better witnesses than clothes. We've produced 5 years of returns, K1's bank statements, leases, insurance policies, and schedules of assets and liabilities. We're not here to posture. We're here to account. The judge turned to the clerk. Disclosures. Dillon slid forward a slim binder, tabs in pastel like it had been assembled during a brunch. Porter set our stack down like cedar planks, then placed a thumb drive on top as if crowning it with a coin. He added a 1-page summary. My stomach did the elevator thing, up a fraction, down a fraction, and then held. The judge read eyes moving the way an app loads fast, then steady. She flipped a page, then two. She didn't sigh or smile. She looked like a carpenter eyeing a beam to see if it bows. I watched her glance at the summary numbers, then at Ivy, then briefly at me as if to check whether my face matched my paperwork. It's a strange feeling when your life points to itself. "Mrs. Corbett," she said at last, voice level. "Your counsel asserts a picture of your husband's finances. The disclosures paint a different one in present income and depreciation in assets acquired before marriage in a trust funded with premarital proceeds. For temporary orders, this court requires clarity, not conjecture." Dylan's smile thickened. "Your Honor, with respect, our position is about equity. Mrs. Corbett's standard of living is aspirational," Porter said, gentle as a level touching drywall, "and in significant part curated on social media. We've included screenshots only where they intersect with undisclosed accounts or debts. We're not trying this in the comments." The judge held up a palm. "Enough advocacy. I'll set the interim framework." Every ear leaned closer by instinct. Somewhere behind me a chair creaked like an old gate. "Temporary support," she said, "will be based on documented need, not projection. Mr. Corbett, your disclosures indicate multiple revenue streams, some fixed, some pass-through with depreciation affecting taxable income. Your personal expenses are frugal, and your books are clean." She said the last word with a kind of relief I wasn't expecting. Ivy's jaw clicked once, a small metronome inside a tense face. "The residence," the judge continued. "Title indicates primary funding from Mr. Corbett's separate account. For now, possession remains with Mr. Corbett. Neither party is to dissipate assets. No purchase above $5,000, no transfers without mutual consent or court approval. Discovery will proceed. I will read one number into the record to anchor expectations: Mr. Corbett's net worth as disclosed on summary line 1. Dylan leaned forward like a sprinter at a gun. Porter didn't move. She read the number. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't need to. The number did its own work. A bailiff's eyebrows lifted a millimeter. Sylvia's fingers tightened on her handbag until the leather made a sound like something learning to speak. Grant blew a half laugh he tried to swallow and ended up chewing. Ivy didn't move. She practiced stillness like Pilates, yet a small smirk at one corner dissolved like frost when sunlight edges across it. "We proceed on evidence," Judge Whitaker said, sliding the page back on the stack. "No digital grandstanding. Counsel will confer on discovery deadlines. If a party misrepresents a material fact, I will sanction." Television gavels come down like thunder. Here it was a pen tapping once on a sheet. We were dismissed to the soft clatter of chairs rehearsing escape. In the corridor's cooler air, Porter touched my elbow. "Good start," he said under his breath, the way a coach says your time was solid. "Don't gloat, don't text, don't go fix anything at their house. Boring wins." We made it 3 steps before a pearl-tipped voice hooked my name. Sylvia smiled without heat. "You hid," she said softly as if we shared a secret. "That's not family." "I filed," I said. "I labeled. I left contracts on the kitchen table. You told me real men buy things that shine." Ivy stood a step behind, her arms folded, eyes on mine without skittering away. "You could have told me," she said. It hit because its shadow was true. I could have told her, and she could have listened, and both of us had taken our assigned seats instead. "I tried," I said. 2 words that carried more years than they should have. She blinked a quick shudder that might have been regret or calculation, and then Dylan reappeared with an arm like a shepherd's crook. Porter steered me toward the elevator. "She'll pivot," he said. "Expect a narrative about hidden wealth and emotional neglect. Expect affidavits from friends who think ring lights are sacrament. Keep your phone quiet. No victory laps, not even in your head." Back at his office, Porter set the folder on a pad, took off his glasses, and regarded me like a problem set you can solve if you slow your breathing. "The next part is uglier and slower," he said. "Interrogatories, production, devices if we have to. We ask for what matters." He turned the pad and wrote 3 words. Cash flow, control, credibility. "I have all the boring," I said. "Good," he said. "Boring is undefeated." The week after felt like the space after a thunderclap, when you're not sure if the storm is leaving or catching its breath. I went to the properties early, stayed late. I replaced a dented roll-up door because I needed to feel steel transform under a mallet. I logged deposits and swept gravel from seams where tires like to stutter. When a motion light flickered, I changed bulbs until each halo was steady. Routine put my heartbeat back where it belongs. At night, the house sounded like a set after closing. You can see where the furniture was by the clean outlines in the dust. The ring light stood in the living room, tall, unblinking, ridiculous, like a portal to a world that judged me by reflection. I boxed more records labels in thick black marker. Lease renewals, 2019, 2021, city grounds, 5-year renewal laundromat, LOI, and buy-in. I put ugly details in with the handsome ones the winter I took a small emergency loan to put a roof over a tenant's head, the tax bill that bled because I mistimed a sale, the week I paid myself less because asphalt cures when it wants not when you schedule it. Porter's first email landed with bullet points like gentle nails, respond within 30 days. Keep receipts you'd normally toss. Photograph the house room by room, quartz-like pictures that don't tell stories but refuse to lie. He added almost as an aside, stop rescuing Grant's projects. Not a problem, I replied, then deleted a second sentence that wanted to brag about the floating shelf. Interrogatories arrived from Dylan, like accusations written in polite grammar passwords for 5 years. Everyone I discussed business with journals, clothing budget. Porter's volleyback asked for social media income statements, tax returns, bank accounts under Ivy's name, or for her benefit, retail credit applications. Any expenditure over $1,000 made without my knowledge. Paper doesn't glare. It simply sits and accumulates weight. I met the therapist with the watered plant and kind eyes because repetition without repair turns into grooves that hold you whether you like the route or not. She listened like a person watching a spirit level waiting for the bubble to settle. You speak like a man who picks up other people's screws, she said. You're very good at sweeping. Ask whether you also hide behind it. I tried the homework. I drafted hard texts in notes so I didn't send them. I allowed myself exactly 1 peppermint a day unwrapped with the caution people give to movie grenades. Depositions were set mine, Tuesday Ivy's Thursday. Answer slowly, exactly without adjectives, Porter said. In the room, be a ledger. I wore steel-toe boots to my own deposition because I like the feel of weight. Dylan laid tripwires. Describe income streams. I did. Bookkeeping. I did. Why separate folders? Because grease splatters. Did you ever say to your wife the exact words, trust me? Yes. How many times? Too many. When he asked if I'd concealed accounts, Porter objected to form. I said no, and then listed the accounts twice in case repetition built a fence. 2 days later, I sat behind Porter while Ivy took the chair. The court reporter's fingers made the sound of distant rain on a metal roof. Dylan coached with his eyes. Ivy answered in a mic-soft voice. I supported his dreams, she said. I built community. I created a home. Porter's questions were surgical and polite, as if measuring a doorframe in a stranger's kitchen. Do you recall opening any line of credit in Mr. Corbett's name? She looked surprised in a way that felt practiced. No. Do you recall authorizing charges above $500 that you did not disclose to him? Not that I remember. Porter slid a document across the table. Exhibit 10. He said nothing in his tone but gravity. Account application. Mailing address your home. Activation via the shared landline. We'll save the audio for court. Ivy glanced down and then away as if the ink might run. We discussed that, she said. We had not. Porter didn't argue with her memory. He let the statement sit and cool. Then he moved to brand collaborations. Paid in product or cash. Sometimes product. Records of product as compensation. I didn't know I needed receipts for face cream. That night I didn't sleep much. It wasn't rage. It was the steadying knowledge that you can be right and still feel carved. Around 2 a.m., while putting away invoices, a small square of paper slipped from a folder seam and fell like it had waited 2 years for that sound, a delivery receipt. Signature I, Corbett. Note, camera lens gift from brand. Do not bend. The billing reference's last 4 digits matched a card I supposedly didn't know existed. I photographed it on the kitchen counter, the black marker dates in frame like a witness, and sent it to Porter. He replied with 1 word. Good. By the next Monday, the court had set another hearing 3 days out. I didn't rehearse a speech. Porter says speeches leak. I rehearsed breathing and the order of exhibits the way you rehearse the order of wrenches when you're under a sink and the water doesn't care about your dignity. The week was going to ask for proof. I had it. What it would ask next, recognition, forgiveness, was a later problem. For now, I packed the peppermint jar in a Ziploc so it wouldn't sweat in my pocket and left for work, keys heavy and right against my thigh. The courthouse looked the same the second time, like a beige machine that eats hours and prints orders. Porter met me on the steps with that thin folder under his arm and a peppermint already unwrapped between two fingers. "We moved to supplement," he said, like a grocery list. "No drama, let the paper talk." Inside, Ivy sat 2 rows up in a rain-colored suit. Sylvia wasn't beside her this time. Mr. Dillon whispered in her ear like a stage prompter. When the clerk called our case, Judge Whitaker took the bench with the same tight braid and the same attention you give a spreadsheet before you wire money. Dillon went first. "Your Honor, Mrs. Corbett needs stability. We renew our request for temporary support commensurate with the standard of living." Porter stood only when the heir asked him to. "We move to supplement the record," he said, handing the clerk a neat packet. Audio logs from the bank verifying activation of an account opened in Mr. Corbett's name via the party's landline, a delivery receipt linking purchases to that account, and preliminary responses from platforms paying Mrs. Corbett for brand collaborations. He called each item like a carpenter calling out measurements. The judge scanned face a low, steady flame. "Mrs. Corbett," she said without looking up, "your affidavit references reimbursements. Please explain the deposits at issue." Ivy swallowed. "Those were brand reimbursements," she said carefully. "Business use only." "I must have forgotten to list that account." "Invoices?" the judge asked. "Yes," Ivy said. "I can provide them." Porter tapped his next page. "Your Honor, the platform responses show no reimbursements in those amounts on those dates. They do show affiliate payouts routed to an account ending in 1743. That account is not in Mrs. Corbett's name." Dillon's jaw moved once. "We haven't had an opportunity to review." "It's her mother's," Porter added, gentle as a level touching drywall. No one gasped. The room just got quiet the way people do when they're adding columns in their heads. Judge Whitaker looked at Dillon, then at Ivy, then back to the paperwork. "Counsel," she said to Dillon, "confer with your client and amend as necessary. Mrs. Corbett affidavits are sworn not aspirational. Misstatements intentional or careless have consequences." We moved on to deadlines and device production like folding laundry. The judge set a timetable, denied the renewed support request without prejudice, and reminded everyone that posts on the internet are not ledgers. In the corridor, the air felt cooler, less staged. I hovered in the neutral zone Porter taught me. Ivy stood by a window twisting a thin ring I'd forgotten she owned. When she turned, her face was more ache than armor. "It's not what you think," she said quietly. "I'm not thinking," I said. "I'm following paper." For a second, the Ivy I once knew flickered, the one who sat on the counter while I told stories about gate motors, and she told me where the light should go. Then Dillon called her name and she went. Back at the office, Porter finally showed the page he'd kept folded like a card. "Metadata," he said, sliding the printout over. "Your wife's affidavit was drafted on 3 different days from an IP block registered to your mother-in-law's address. Timestamps align with email traffic to Dillon. We'll use it if we have to. Tactical question is whether Ivy is steering or being steered." "I don't want to swing a hammer at the wrong hand," I said. "Good," Porter said. "Because the bank just called." He put the phone on speaker. A woman with patient vowels explained that the card activation captured a brief voice sample for verification. "We can release the audio under subpoena," she said. "To answer your question, Mr. Corbett, the sample does not match your voice. It matches a female voice associated with subsequent shipping calls. Send the custodian declaration with chain of custody," Porter said, already writing. "Evidence is a strange comfort. It doesn't love you back, but it doesn't lie." Days ran on rails. Interrogatories answered backups, pulled photos taken room by room because pictures pinned stories to the floor. I ate the diner's chicken fried something and let the waitress call me Hun. I replaced a keypad that had given up blinking and watched the green light make a tenant's evening. I kept 1 peppermint per day like a prayer. That night, an email slid into my inbox from an address that looked like a blendered username. No subject, no text, just an attachment, a grainy phone photo of a laptop screen. A draft email sat open. The from was Sylvia's address. The to was Mr. Dillon's. The first line read, "We need to make sure he never discloses the Henderson option." Then the image cut off like the photographer lowered the phone fast. "Henderson," I said aloud. It meant everything and nothing. Henderson Scrap and Salvage, where I once bought lockers. Henderson Parkway near the interstate lot, where a developer sniffed around billboards. I had never used the word option with either. I forwarded the image to Porter with a note, "Unknown source. Treat as trap until proved otherwise." He called 5 minutes later. "We don't authenticate attachments by wish," he said. "We ask better questions. Anything in your world named Henderson we haven't disclosed?" I told him what I knew. He hummed like a man testing a stud in drywall. "If there's a third-party contract bearing that word, we'll find it. If there isn't. The point isn't Henderson, it's intent. Somebody is strategizing about suppression. We only play that when we can trace origin. Chain of custody, or it's a rumor in costume." Sleep came poorly. My brain kept flipping option like a coin. At 4 a.m., I wrote on a yellow pad, "Ask billboard developer for prior drafts." Email search, Henderson. Then I went to the East property and watched Dawn find the roll-ups one by one. Somewhere a train blew a long note. It ran the line of doors like a rumor turned harmless by distance. By Monday, subpoenas shook loose enough material to thicken our stack. The bank's custodian declaration came with a clean audio file tying activation to our landline. The platform responded again with a spreadsheet of payouts and the 1743 account in Sylvia's name circled by a compliance officer with no patience for ambiguity. Porter's paralegal Asha pulled EXIF data on the delivery receipt photo I'd sent weeks ago. It matched a day Ivy was home and I wasn't. In court, Porter asked to supplement chain of custody docs the audio. Dillon objected to scope. Judge Whitaker waved him down. She listened to 30 seconds of a voice saying, "Yes, I'm calling to activate the card that just came in the mail." Then the rep reading back our home number. The room didn't move. The court reporter typed, facts stacked like lumber ready to frame. Porter slid one more page to the clerk. Declaration from Mr. Corbett's accountant noting inconsistencies in Mrs. Corbett's affidavit, specifically deposits routed through an account in her mother's name characterized as reimbursements. "We don't quarrel with business models, only with undisclosed conduits." Dillon's smile cracked. "We request time to amend." By Friday, the judge said, "And Mrs. Corbett, you will produce invoices you claim exist, if they do not say so. This court is allergic to fiction dressed as fact." We adjourned on the soft sounds of a building that lives on fluorescence and rules. In the hallway, Ivy stared at nothing so hard it looked like something. She turned eyes steadier than weeks ago. "I didn't know the number," she said. "I know," I said. "I don't know if knowing would have changed choices." She nodded a truce between grief and agreement. "Did you think about telling me anyway?" "Every day," I said, and left it there. Back at Porter's, Asha had taped 2 lists on a whiteboard, motion to compel device's limited scope, and depose Sylvia Corbett topics. Porter added a third Henderson and circled it. "If it's noise, we ignore it," he said. "If it's real, we show the court you disclosed everything and someone else tried to bury a shadow. Either way, don't chase ghosts." So I went back to work. I tightened a screaming hinge on Unit 14A. I replaced a lock Sylvia would have called ugly and a nurse would have called safe. I ate a sandwich on the tailgate and didn't check my phone for an hour. In an old auction notebook, my grandfather's block letters on the inside cover said, "Measure twice isn't about tape. It's about time." That evening, another anonymous email. "You should see this before Friday." Attachment, a doorway angled photo of a laptop. A draft to Dillon read, "If he raises the billboard conversation near Henderson Parkway, remind the court those talks were exploratory and never memorialized." It cut off mid-line. Behind it, a desktop folder named Affidavit Final Timestamped, 2:13 a.m. I forwarded it to Porter with 4 words, "Still could be trap." He replied with 3 chain or nothing. By Tuesday morning, we had what we needed, a volunteer custodian from the platform certifying payout routes, a letter from the billboard developer confirming only a letter of intent on my side and no option language, the bank's CD delivered to the clerk, and a compliance note from a retail card issuer that read like a sigh, voice print mismatch with Mr. Corbett confirmed. That afternoon, Judge Whitaker granted our motion to compel a limited forensic image of Ivy's laptop and phone for metadata related to the disputed affidavit and undisclosed accounts with a neutral vendor and tight scope. Dylan objected about privacy. The judge said privacy is not a cloak for omissions and set a date. Porter looked over his glasses. "We're close," he said. "Last mile is where people trip. Don't text, don't post, don't rehearse winning." "I don't feel like winning," I said. "I feel like triage." "Good," he said. "That's the right temperature." By week's end, the neutral vendor's preliminary report hit the docket under seal. Porter saw enough to speak in a sentence that left splinters. "Edits from your mother-in-law's network," he said, plus draft names that look like strategy, not bookkeeping. Friday afternoon, the court set the final hearing for Wednesday. I wrote it on the yellow pad like a fence post, "Wednesday final." The word made my stomach lurch and then level. That evening, I walked the rows as the lights clicked on, halos steady in the early dark. The highway whispered. The keys against my thigh felt heavy and right. Part of me still ached for someone who'd trained herself to look away. A larger part knew the court doesn't measure ache. It measures paper and oath. I locked the gate and listened until all I could hear was my own breath. Next week, the storm would decide whether it had been gathering all along or if we'd built it. Either way, the frame was ready. Final Wednesday arrived with light that made everything look wiped with a damp cloth. Porter sat beside me, folder thin as ever, peppermint sweating in its wrapper. Across the aisle, Ivy in slate Dylan at her shoulder. No Sylvia, no Grant. The neutral vendor's sealed report waited with the clerk like a brick wrapped in brown paper. Judge Whitaker took the bench and the room aligned. "We'll proceed," she said. "I've reviewed the submissions and the vendor's preliminary findings." Brief argument. Dylan tried lifestyle one more time, unseen labor accustomed, standard instability ahead. He spoke in narratives. Porter spoke in numbers. "We're not arguing taste," he said. "We're accounting for money." The record shows undisclosed credit in Mr. Corbett's name activated from the marital phone affiliate payouts routed to an account in Sylvia Corbett's name, an affidavit drafted and edited from that same network, and no invoices supporting asserted reimbursements. We aren't here to punish. We're here to divide and to protect premarital property the law already sets apart. The judge turned a page, then another, lifting the vendor's summary. "The forensic report corroborates what counsel represents," she said. "Edits and file transfers from an address associated with the mother's residence. Audio logs confirming activation by a female caller. Platform records routing payouts to 1743 mother's account. And no documentation matching claimed reimbursements." She set the packet down with care as if mishandled paper could splinter. "Mrs. Corbett affidavits are sworn. Truth is not a dress you borrow." Ivy didn't look at me. She stared at the front rail like it knew the answer she finally had words for. As to the billboard near Henderson Parkway, the judge continued, "I find only exploratory communications. No option existed to disclose. Whatever emails your mother contemplated about making sure something stayed quiet are concerning as to intent but immaterial to division. We won't chase shadows when ledgers stand in sun." She leaned back then forward and the room listened with its bones. "Findings," she said. "Mr. Corbett's premarital trust remains separate. The marital residence, primarily funded by his separate account, remains with him subject to an equalization payment I will calculate after deducting undisclosed withdrawals and mischaracterized receipts. Given concealment and credibility issues, spousal support is denied. Each party keeps their own business interests. Mrs. Corbett will produce any remaining invoices within 10 days or face monetary sanctions. Attorney's fees partial to Mr. Corbett tied to the cost of proving what should have been disclosed." Dylan started to rise. The judge raised a hand. "No, this is not for argument. This is for orders." Her pen tapped once our thunder. Adjourned the room exhaled. Papers shuffled shoes, whispered. Someone coughed the kind of cough you bring to court because you can't leave it at home. In the corridor, Porter's hand found my elbow. "You did it the boring way," he said, which in his dialect is a medal. Ivy waited near the window. When our eyes met, there was no performance left, only the exhausted fact of two people who carried the same house from opposite ends until the frame creaked. She stepped closer, stopped at a polite distance. "I'm not going to say I didn't know," she said, voice steady and small. "I knew enough to not want to know more. I'm not going to say I told you I said. I filed and I also hid behind filing. Both are true. Something unclenched in her face. Regret recognition, I couldn't tell. What happens now? She asked. Paperwork, I said. The right answer and one that saved us both from a different one. She nodded. Dylan called her name. She went. I let her. Life resumed like good machines do, with hum, not fanfare. I changed a keypad that had retired itself. I sold the smallest strip of units at a profit and signed for a second stake in the laundromat. Asha emailed the fee award order with a smiley I pretended not to see. Porter mailed a closing letter that smelled faintly of toner and peppermint. I took the ring light to the curb. For once, the garbage truck came on time. On a Sunday evening, I sat on the tailgate at the East property while sunset turned the doors to quiet gold. A nurse in purple scrubs waved. A kid traced figure eights in gravel until his mother called him in. Motion lights blinked on one by one, small halos finding their work. I thought of grout lines and fences of my grandfather's block letters measured twice as about time. Weeks later, Ivy texted, "I'm moving. Can I pick up the mixer?" I set it on the porch before dawn and left for the route. When I came back, it was gone, and the porch looked like porches do, when you take one thing away and the rest finally makes sense. People ask if I feel like I won. I don't. I feel like a beam that held when the roof took a load it wasn't designed for. I feel the keys against my thigh and the weight is right. Boring didn't beat beautiful. It outlasted it. And when the week goes quiet and the lights click on in order, I hear the sentence I carried into court and never said out loud, clarity holds. Thank you so much for listening to today's story. If this story resonated with you or made you reflect, I'd love to hear your thoughts, so feel free to share them in the comments below. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you won't miss the next story. I'll see you next time as we continue exploring more journeys and lessons together.